number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm Patrick Christiano, your host, the publisher of TheaterLife.com, a website for theater buffs covering all things theater. And I'm coming to you from the LTV studio in Wainscott, where I have a really special guest, an extraordinary architect that's very established out here, Lee Skolnick, a founding partner of Skolnick Design and Architecture. Welcome. Or Skolnick Architecture and Design it is, right?
Skolnick Architecture plus Design Partnership.
Plus Design Partnership.
It's long, but most people say Skolnick.
Well, welcome, Lee.
Thank you.
Lee's done over 80 projects out here in the Hamptons, and he's done things for everybody, just about. I mean, you've worked.
Not everybody who lives
you've
out
worked
here.
with Guildhall, you worked with the Easthampton Library, you worked with
Children's
Longhouse.
Museum, yeah.
Tell us some of the places you've worked for.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Our practice is such that there's a lot of residential work, and a tremendous amount of that is out here since 1980. But because I feel like we're members of the community, we've done a lot of cultural projects, educational projects. So everything from LVIS, you know, gift shop or thrift shop, to the Easthampton Library Children's Wing, the Children's Museum of the East End, a whole bunch of them. I mean, but I love working in a place where I live, you know, because our other work is all over the world. I mean, we work in Luxembourg, in the Caribbean, in Bulgaria, in the Mideast, in China. So it's nice to be doing things in your own backyard as well.
Yeah, but I've always been fascinated by your stories, your worldwide stories, because I'll meet you many times over the years at different social events that we've been to, and I'm always just totally fascinated with what you're doing and how you're doing it. And you always have some incredible story about something fabulous.
Well, you know, the kind of work we do, it's wonderful to travel the world as a tourist, but it's different when you travel the world to do work, because you actually get to under the surface of society, and you really get to know a place. We've been working in Bulgaria for 9 years on about 5 projects, so you know, you become, you know, like an honorary kind of citizen.
Bulgarian.
Yeah, I like to say we're big in Bulgaria.
Well, you're big in the Hamptons too, and you actually have a recent cultural project that you just finished, which we want to talk about up front, which is the church in Sag Harbor, which they just had their first opening.
Last week.
And you had a ribbon cutting just last week too?
No, that was a few weeks ago, the ribbon cutting, but then they opened to the public just this past week, actually with a new exhibit. But yeah, that's a great project, and talk about in your own neighborhood. It's basically 3 minutes from my house. So I worked really closely with Eric Fischel and April Gornick, who are the founders and funders of the church. And we've been working together for over 30 years on projects. I did their first house in Sag Harbor. I did the house they're in now in North Haven, studio in the East Village for Eric at one point. So we've almost constantly been working on something together.
So it's like working with family, kind of.
It is, and you know, when you do that to such a great degree and over so much time, you start to talk in shorthand. You know, you're so aligned. And I mean, the great thing for me really is that this is a new community resource, and it's in the community where I live. So it's very gratifying.
Let's show the audience the pictures of it. Let's first we have one from the outside.
Right. So you know, a lot of the work on the outside was truly restoration. We wanted it to look brand new, but be absolutely authentic to the original design. You know, we changed the windows a lot to let in more light, but the exterior was really a rehabilitation. The interior, on the other hand, is a new world.
You've actually took lath from the building
Right.
underneath and moved it and used it in different.
Yeah, well, the way they used to make plaster walls is they put the timbers up, then they'd put lath strips, and then they would plaster onto the lath strips, the wooden lath strips. So we stripped the lath strips down to their original state, and then we used it to sheathe some of the spaces within the space. So it gives it a kind of integrity because it's consistent with something that was in the church already, but we're rethinking it, and that's kind of the tact that I took, that it's going to be historic, but we're going to reinterpret history for the modern day, and I'm really thrilled with it. I have to say, it turned out really well.
I was just over there the other day. We just missed each other, by the way.
Oh, really?
You know that. I was trying to connect with you to say, I'm going to go to the church. Is it possible you're in town and can meet me? And they told me you just left. We closed.
Oh, yeah.
But there's more pictures of the church. Let's
Sure.
have them. The church?
Yeah, I think yes, the
This is
side
the
view.
side.
So, what would have been in the old days some kind of stained glass, we now made these big clear glass windows. But you'll see the portraits. There are portraits in the center, which are paintings that Eric did of people in the arts who lived in Sag Harbor, 200 years ago or, last week. The one criteria that Eric had.
Dead.
Yes. We didn't want to get into the politics of why aren't I up there. So in order to be lauded in the church, you have to pass away. But
Nobody slashing their wrists.
I wouldn't. I'm not suggesting that.
No.
But it's also kind of a reinterpretation of stained glass, doing it in a modern way.
And yet you can see through it, didn't cover the whole glass too, so
Exactly.
you had openings
Right.
at
So,
the same
so,
time.
so the faces just kind of float in the glass. And when you're I'm sure you saw, when you're in the inside, you're looking through those people. I mean, it's really very poetic, out to Sag Harbor. So you get this double meaning of the importance that arts have had in Sag Harbor, but also celebrating the village itself.
What I loved were all the levels of the space
Yeah.
and the way.
Well,
let's show
yeah,
them
we
more.
were-
We have
we-
more images.
We really opened it up. So this is
This is the entry.
the entryway, and the main floor of the sanctuary is lifted up above the ground. So we needed to create a welcoming stair, that beautiful chandelier, which actually April picked out. And then, yes, the space itself, we wanted to kind of strip it down to the bones and celebrate the incredible craftsmanship. You see those beams, the wood beams that are going across? Each one of those is 50 feet long, and it's one piece of wood,
Wow.
which you could never do today to find that kind of thing. But we exposed the timbers, we exposed the roof frame and the walls, and then we infilled in between the frame, you can see. So it has this pattern. It's a very graphic pattern between the original timbers and the infill. But we want it to be a really flexible space. So as you say, it's very spacious, three-dimensionally. And then in the steeple, we have, just below the bell, we have a little library, reference library.
And they're still collecting the books, I see.
Yes, although a lot of people have promised to donate. This is downstairs. This is, the church was originally up on High Street. It was in another part of the village, and in the 1860s,
They moved
they
it?
moved it down onto Madison Street, and they put it on top of a big stone foundation. So that space that we were just looking at, the workspace, you could call it the basement, but it's actually all above ground.
No, I actually entered through that space.
Oh,
'Cause
did you?
we parked on the side, and I didn't go through the main entrance because I saw this door, and I just went in the side way, and I realized I was in the basement,
Yeah.
and we weren't in the.
Well, those walls, the stone walls, are 22 inches thick. So we didn't have to insulate or waterproof
Wow.
them because nothing could get through that. On the other hand, we are building a modern building, right? So we have a glass elevator in there, so it's fully handicapped accessible. We re-insulated in a very environmentally responsible way the walls and the roof. So it performs like a new building, but it has all this authenticity of its historic nature. It was originally built in 1835, I think, before they moved it down. So it's, you know, as I say, I have to say this was a labor of love, you know, because it's in my community, and I could offer whatever skills and expertise I have for the benefit of people who live here.
We have a passion for what you do. It's clear, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
I enjoyed it so much, and when you see the art, like we saw pictures of an empty space. It was really cool to see the stuff in there too,
Yeah.
because the different angles. I took just a lot of pictures of it. It was fascinating.
Well, you know, it can function as an art gallery, which it does right now. There's a great show on cars in art. It can function as a performance space for musical performances, for movies, although we have a great cinema now down the street. And so it needed to be multifunctional. But as a result, I think it has a spatial quality that is, I mean, people go up those stairs and then they go, you know, there's this deep breath at the top of the stairs when
because you get the whole view. It's
you
gorgeous.
see
And you see all
everything.
the levels all at one time. It's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, it was really great to work on. And it gives you, you know, a real appreciation for the history of the village as well.
It's a fabulous project.
Thank
We have a lot of stills, and we're gonna kind of just
Take a
scan
little
through
tour.
them and let you talk about, because a lot of them are projects that you've done out here or things that happened out here, and some of them are all over the world too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's just show the audience
Take a
some of
world
your.
tour. So this is in Sag Harbor. This is a house we did quite recently. And it's a large house.
No
as you can
kidding.
see, but we wanted to break down the scale. So, you know, you can see how it's made out of different volumes as opposed to one big opening. This is the entry from the front door. And it's kind of a bridge. So all of the main spaces are actually on the second floor.
Oh,
So that stairway is very significant because like with the church, when you get to the top of the stairs, the space just explodes out to the landscape. So there you are.
this is
The-
upstairs.
There's the stairway on the right. So you come up, and it's a tall space, and it has glass on both sides. What we wanted to do what the clients wanted was to live in nature.
Oh,
And so we said, okay, we're going to make this open so that you feel like, you know, whatever the weather, whatever the season, you're experiencing it in the most powerful way.
and I could see where you would really do that in that environment, especially up and both
Yeah,
sides.
I mean, it's just breathtaking to look out.
We can
so-
go on with some more images.
Yeah, let's take a look. So this is a little different thing. This is a museum we did in Sofia, Bulgaria, the capital of Bulgaria. It's actually a children's science museum. So we wanted to make it playful, but at the same time we wanted to, you know, what they wanted, because we've done 60 children's museums around the world. They said, well, we want this thing you did somewhere else. And we said, it doesn't have to be that. It can be as good as that, but it's going to be about your culture and a celebration of your history, you know, not about something we might have done in Indiana. You know, Bulgaria is very different. And so we convinced them that it should be unique to Bulgaria. We did all the exhibits as well. So you walk.
You did the exhibits too?
Yeah, we designed, in this one we did the exhibits, the building, the interiors, the site planning and landscape. And this is a 3-story kind of sculptural tree which branches out into the gallery spaces, but it's all interactive, it's very kinetic. And it's another version of the big wow. You know, when you walk into a space, what happens? What's your first impression? Well, your first impression of that is this enormous, colorful, sculptural tree, and that branches out into the exhibit galleries.
It's fabulous. It's cool.
It was a fun project. And you can see those patterns, those sculptural objects on the outside actually penetrate into the building. So they sort of bridge, you know, from outside to inside.
So what's this?
And this is where we're back in Wainscott.
Okay.
This is a home we did for an artist who works in multimedia. So she started out working in ceramics, and now she's branched out into prints and drawings and large-scale interventions, site interventions. Very exciting. So it's a compound. It's a house, studio, pool house, storage, garage. And, it's a good example of trying to work with the vernacular out here, but not repeat it. I have to say, I may alienate some viewers, but I don't like these bad reinterpretations of historic architecture. I think you can refer to the architecture, but we're living in the 21st century, and I don't know why anybody would want to, they want the latest car, the most up-to-date technology, the fashionable clothes, and yet then they build these houses that imagine that they might have been built 2 centuries ago. That's not for me. So
They build them with all that technology in them, though.
yeah, I know, but then they clothe them in an anachronistic style. Anyway, I don't want to alienate. This is still my market out here.
I'm a fan of modern too. So what can I tell you?
We live in
I appreciate the old. I'm a fan of modern.
Well, I love the old, the authentic old.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like these bad recreations. Anyway.
So this is Eric's house, right?
Yeah, Eric and April, and it celebrates what their passion is, which is their art. So you enter in between their 2 studios. On the right is Eric's studio, on the left is April's, and you enter in between under this overhang, and then you wind up in the courtyard, and then the house is beyond that.
Oh, how fabulous! How much property is it on?
It's not that much. It's maybe 3.5 acres, something like that. But it's a perfect example of designing for one's actual lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not generic. It's very personal to how they want to live, what their priorities are, and we had a great time doing it.
But you've done more than just this house. You've done many projects with them, right?
Yeah. Well, they had a little farmhouse originally on Harrison Street, which we renovated and built 2 studios at that time, and I built a studio for Eric in the East Village many years ago. So, but we've also become best friends. So it's it's a wonderful.
How could you not become good friends with anybody that you're building a house with? I mean, first of all, you have to listen to. You have to really. Doesn't it happen all the time?
Well, we have a credo in the firm, and it's listen, learn, distill, create. So it starts out listening, and then you translate people's desires, values, interests into a place to live. And so you distill it down to a point where, okay, now I know what I have to design. I don't run in the beginning and say, wave my hand and say, here's my creation. Listening and learning about the situation is the key to making something with meaning, true meaning, and not just, a commodity that you would buy off a supermarket shelf.
So do you become friendly with everybody, or do you not? Some of them you separate. I mean, because it would.
Well, my wife always says, "Have you looked around lately? Do you realize that all our best friends are your former clients?"
So you do.
We do, because it's a very personal relationship that you establish with people, and in some ways you know more about them than almost anyone, and so it's very comforting then to continue that relationship, which is wonderful. I mean, they're great people. Most of the people.
No, I would think when you do things like that and you really get to know people and they've picked you because they like you and you're working with them because if they pick you because they've liked you, you will obviously like them because there wouldn't be a camaraderie going on to begin with. So it becomes the perfect foundation for the relationship to build.
Yeah, it's a great way to make friends.
And money.
Well, we have to support ourselves, yes. And everybody back in New York in the office, so.
So, where do we have more images?
So many people hopefully out here are familiar with this. This is the Easthampton Children's Library and Reading Room. So we chose to.
I bet you a lot of people haven't seen this, believe it or not.
Yeah, you think? Maybe not. And so we celebrated the iconography of Easthampton. We have the windmill, the lighthouses, the librarian's desk is like an old dory. So, we try and find the essential narrative in every situation and use that as the springboard or the inspiration for the design. So, with the kids, it was all about what things are quintessentially Easthampton, and that's what we developed.
Are there more images?
This, anybody with young kids is probably familiar with. This is the Children's Museum of the East End. in Bridgehampton, and God, we probably did this 20 years ago, maybe. But you know,
How long have you been out here altogether?
I've been out here since 1978. Not full time. I mean, full time now with
For
the
only a
pandemic.
couple of years.
Yeah, but our kids, you know, feel like they grew up out here, even though they went to school
Right.
in the city, because we'd come out every weekend and holidays and the whole summer. So it wasn't that big a step to now be here full time.
So I think we have a few more images, or not? Was that the last one?
This is a townhouse that we just finished in the village, in Greenwich Village. We opened up the entire 5 stories.
Wow.
To
What,
let-
what street is it on?
It's on 10th Street. This is an entrepreneurial education center we did in Dayton, Ohio. It's 114 acres. And
What is that? An
entrepreneurial education.
What is
Well,
that?
it's not business school. It's a place for entrepreneurs or business people to come and learn how to manage and grow their businesses in a responsible way. And you know, as with a lot of our work, it's a LEED Gold project, which means it's highly environmentally responsible. And we just had a great time doing. You know, that's another. You know, what would ever take you to Dayton, Ohio?
When we
But you know, I wound up spending, you know,
when
on
I went up there, that's exactly what I thought. This is in Dayton, Ohio.
right, exactly. But we had a very visionary client, and he really wanted to give back to the business community because he had been extremely successful himself, and he wanted to help others.
But what was the hook to Dayton?
What was the hook to Dayton?
Uh-huh.
Well, we had, I mean, there's a story. We had done the Muhammad Ali Center, which is a museum in Louisville, Kentucky. And one of the people who were searching for an architect for this project had been there. And they contacted, which is usually how things happen.
Yes, of course.
You
of
know,
course,
they
of course.
see something, they say, I want that. And then I say, no, you can't have that. But you can have something indigenous to your needs and your location. And it usually works out. This is the first museum I ever designed from scratch. This is in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and it is also a children's museum. And you know, the two key features there is one is we didn't need a sign on this building because we had an enormous interactive sculpture behind the glass. So anyone passing by would immediately know this is a place of interaction for kids. And then we built that tower, which is kind of reminiscent of an old-fashioned village square that might have a clock tower or something, because we wanted people to see it from a distance and be drawn to the museum. So that was the first one.
Wow.
Yeah, this is kind of wow. This is 2 companion villas on the island of Anguilla.
So this is somebody's home?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And we've done maybe about 12, 15.
But that's not their permanent, that's their second home too, right?
That's their second home. They live in New York City as well. But we got to be very prolific in Anguilla because having done one thing, other people came to us. We've done 3 resorts and maybe about 9 villas on that one island.
Wow. Well, I could see where that would really get you a lot of business because that's really spectacular.
People love it. And this is a design for a museum in Istanbul, Turkey. This is
And is grass on the roof? Is that what this
yeah,
is?
it's extremely sustainable design in terms of the environment. And that's another one where we designed all the exhibits as well as the building.
How did you get the first museum?
I got the first museum because a friend of mine was the director of a children's museum in Staten Island,
Mm-hmm.
and they were looking for a designer to design an interactive exhibit on the history of Staten Island. And I had just gotten out of school, I think, at Cooper Union, and she called me and said, you know, you design theaters and scenic venues, and I didn't have the heart to tell her that no, I had never done that.
Really?
But she said, so, you know, why don't we interview you for this job? So it was an exhibit design, not a building. And the person who interviewed me was the program director of that museum, who I have now been married to for
How wonderful.
37 years. So she
So a little nepotism almost.
yeah, so, but it worked out well for all of us. So I started designing exhibits for museums, and I had this one thought that, well, maybe if I start to design the exhibits, it'll be a faster track to designing whole museums, because museums are very plum projects. I mean, it's what every architect dreams of doing is museums, and it worked. So I gradually went from just doing the exhibits to doing the buildings as well.
Because I was wondering how the first one came your way, and I know, because I know after you get one, if you do a good job, you're
Yeah.
probably going to get more.
Yeah.
And,
And so we still do exhibits too. We do, in fact, at Longhouse, we just opened an exhibit. Jack Leonard Larson just
Right,
passed
right.
away recently. So we
I just saw it. That's we would.
Oh, that's right. So we designed an exhibit celebrating his life. So we still do lots of exhibits.
So now, Longhouse is consulting you because originally the house was more a home.
a home.
And now what do they want to make it?
Well, I'm actually a vice president of the board as well. So what we want to do is
We have about a minute and a half, but go ahead.
turn the house into a public museum. And that's not just opening the door. That means rethinking the building systems, the fire codes, the handicap codes. But the idea is that it will be a museum open to the public, celebrating his life and his work.
And can you get in there and do the work without all the landscaping that's been done? How will that?
We know how to do that.
Because I'm wondering how one does that.
We know how to protect what needs to be protected. But it's very exciting. It's a new chapter in Longhouse's history.
Yeah, and I thought it was really interesting the way they have two trustees at the top.
Two presidents.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Diane and Nina. They work like I don't want to say like dogs. They're just so devoted.
Oh yes, oh absolutely.
They give a lot of their time and energy and expertise. It's a wonderful place.
And Jack entrusted them because he really trusted them.
Yes, he knew that it would be in good
I'm
hands.
trying to get them to come on and talk about it because I think it's really interesting the level of trust that he had to imbue in them to keep his vision of what he wanted to do.
To pass it on and keep it alive.
We're out of time.
Oh dear.
Please
We'll
come back.
We'll have to come back and do the other half. Well,
Thank
this
you
was
so
fun.
much.
It was
Yes,
great.
It was great. It was really fun.
All right.